Category 5 Hurricane Beryl is an explosive, powerful, and historic storm with winds at one point as strong as 165 miles per hour sustained and gusting near 200 miles per hour. Just to put into scope how crazy this is, we have only seen 40 other Category 5 hurricanes in the Atlantic ever since we started keeping records, with Beryl being the 41st, and almost all of these have occurred in August, September, and October, when conditions in the Atlantic are most favorable for hurricane intensification. This just shows how rare it is for storms to get this powerful, especially this early in the season. So Beryl is the earliest Category 5 hurricane ever, and only the second ever to have formed in the month of July after Emily in 2005. It's also the only Category 4 storm to ever form in June, and it's the strongest hurricane in terms of wind speeds ever recorded in both June and July. Beryl also rapidly intensified like crazy, going from a tropical depression of 35 miles per hour to a major and destructive Category 3 storm in just 42 hours. But while these stats are crazy and the storm will be the talk for some time, it's the impacts of people that matter, so let's take a look at where Beryl is going next and who it's going to affect. Beryl crashed through the Windward Islands, unfortunately causing extensive damage and contributing to at least 7 deaths that we know of as of Tuesday. As of this recording at noon Tuesday, Beryl is now a Category 4 storm with very powerful sustained winds still of 155 miles per hour. Here's a track by the National Hurricane Center going forward. So immediate impacts that we'll have to watch for next this afternoon into evening are for the Dominican Republic and Haiti as the storm brushes by to the south. It's looking like we won't see a direct hit to these countries, but the northern edges of the storm will still brush by, and at least tropical storm force winds are expected, with hurricane force wind gusts possible. Heavy rain of 6 inches plus and storm surge of 1 to 3 feet along the coast will create some flooding concerns that we'll need to be on the watch for. So basically those in the southern portions of these countries will be most affected, especially to anyone living near the coast, and moving inland away from the water would be a good idea. The storm then approaches Jamaica early tomorrow on Wednesday, and Jamaica is looking increasingly likely to see either a direct hit or at the very best case a very close pass from the storm. Everyone in Jamaica, whether local or vacationing, needs to be prepared and take this storm extremely seriously. Damaging to destructive hurricane force winds, life-threatening storm surge of up to 8 feet, and flooding are high concern. I mean, 8 feet of storm surge is very threatening and dangerous to any communities along the coast, because it basically means the water level of the ocean will rise 8 feet, swamping beaches as ocean water is pushed inland. The only good news is that Beryl will be weakening as it approaches, so it probably won't be as strong as it is right now, but it's still going to be a very powerful hurricane, likely around Category 3 strength, so don't let that lull you into false security. The Cayman Islands are up next for Thursday, where hurricane warnings are also in effect before the storm takes a breather over open seas as it moves northwestward. After the Caribbean, a lot more question marks appear with our storm in terms of track and intensity, but the Yucatan Peninsula and northern Belize needs to be on guard next. The storm will likely track somewhere into this region on early Friday, exactly where it's still uncertain at this point, but strength-wise, most models are showing a weakened storm by this point. So the Hurricane Center's official forecast is of a Category 1 hurricane moving inland, but there is a lot more uncertainty than usual with this intensity forecast, so let's look here. This graph shows the projected strength of many different computer models on the storm, and looking here at the Friday morning time frame, we can see a clear divide with two kind of camps. We have one camp showing that the storm could stay very strong as a dangerous Category 3 or 4, while the other camp shows that our storm will weaken much more to a Category 1 or even just a tropical storm. But regardless of how strong, there is still a tropical cyclone headed to this area Friday, and preparation should start now. Okay, finally, after the Yucatan, we have even more uncertainty in our system and how it would potentially impact the US. The storm will emerge into the southwest Gulf over the weekend, and from there it looks like we have two possible scenarios in our models. So here's what we call our spaghetti models. This basically is all of our best hurricane models put together on one map, and each of the lines represent a different model's forecast of where the storm will go. Majority of models show some sort of northward or rightward turn of this storm in the Gulf, so this would mean that the storm could be approaching northern Mexico or southern Texas, but others of our models keep a more westward track into central Mexico. And there are a few outliers here, far north and far south, but right now these are looking pretty unlikely. So looking at some models, the GFS, the American model, has been fairly consistent in bringing the storm, or whatever's left of it, into Texas, which would bring more heavy rain impacts into the US. On the other hand, the European model, which has also been very consistent and is very reliable, is keeping the storm south, moving it into Mexico on the more westward track. There's also a lot of question marks as to the strength of the storm at this point, whether it will be able to re-strengthen after the Yucatan or stay weaker as a tropical storm. Bottom line, anyone along the East Mexico coast and Texas should closely track this storm into early next week. Just watching some of the trends lately with the models, my gut does tell me that the Texas impact is looking increasingly likely. More models have been trending that way recently, but we just don't know for sure yet, and we'll just have to watch and wait in the coming days. So there we have it, all the latest on Beryl. Man, only our second storm of the season is causing such devastation and destruction, and forecasted to impact so many areas over such a long period of time. I mean, by the time the storm enters the Gulf next week, it'll be going on over a week of direct land impacts as a dangerous hurricane. We'll keep you all updated as to what it'll do next in the Gulf as we get more information, so stay tuned. But again, immediate impacts are for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and eventually the Yucatan, and they need to be really preparing for this storm now. And unfortunately, the storm may be giving us a glimpse as to what's ahead for the rest of this hurricane season, because as we said, this is forecasted to be one of the busiest hurricane seasons on record, with very warm jet fuel water temperatures to power any storms. Of course, I'll be here tracking them and letting you know what's ahead in the coming days, so stay tuned. So thanks for watching, and see y'all soon. We'll have another update on Beryl as it approaches closer to the US later on this week.